These are not things that you have to wait for magic skies opening, unicorns and ponies emerging, and suddenly one day it all comes together. Like, we can take these steps, we can take these actions, we can lock the innovation advancement almost immediately with just a few couple of clear changes.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing. What it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company? If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more.
In this episode, I'm welcoming back Nicola Corzine, CEO and Executive Director of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, to reveal brand new research that uncovers the top 20 metropolitan regions driving innovation across the country. We discuss the surprising factors these thriving communities have in common, from the pivotal role of angel investors and 504 loans to the unexpected power of technical colleges and bipartisan support. You'll want to listen until the very end to hear the blueprint of building vibrant, inclusive ecosystems and find out if your city made the list. Enjoy the show. Nicola, welcome back to the Angel Next Door podcast.
Oh, it is so good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be back. We've got a lot to talk about, and a lot has changed, obviously, so it's a lot of fun.
No, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to hear all about the data and all the things you've been doing and the research. But first, let's tell our listeners a little bit about the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and all the amazing resources that you have for entrepreneurs.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we are in business of supporting every single entrepreneur in the world to maximize their potential. We've been doing that now for 10 years. We're an independent 501c3, started with a very generous gift by NASDAQ Foundation and now supported by many of the leading foundations worldwide, all with a mission of ensuring access and knowledge in the field of entrepreneurship is available for everyone. And today that means we learn beside a community of 125,000 entrepreneurs from all parts of the world, domestic and international, what their biggest barriers are and how we can overcome them, whether that's through education, mentorship, resources, or support, all of which are provided for free. We charge nothing. We don't take any equity. It's all based on a very real pay-it-forward approach to entrepreneurship, which means that every entrepreneur that we support is going to turn around and support other entrepreneurs in their communities, and we're going to build forward a better innovation economy for all.
Oh, I just love that so much. And when we had you on the show the last time, you told us all the details. We're definitely going to put a link in the show notes to the previous episodes so that if people want all the nitty-gritty details on all the amazing things that the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center does, they can get that. And of course, your website is very robust and has lots and lots of information. So we'll make sure to link to that too. But tell us a little bit give us the sneak peek. By the time this episode airs, the cat will be out of the bag about what's happening with the research and the data you've been collecting.
Thank you. I'm going to start by stating the obvious, but it's sometimes the obvious that runs away from all of us. Despite all the reasons to not pursue entrepreneurship, each and every day we're inspired by all those who say, I'm still going to give it my best. I'm going to put it all on the line and build for a brighter tomorrow, whether that brighter tomorrow is for their family, generational wealth, for their community, for social capacity, for innovation at large, and for our world. They are what makes our place a better place to live. And where they build really matters to them. And yet place has sometimes been left behind in the equation of understanding what is actually happening that's allowing some entrepreneurs to flourish in their places and for others to really sadly be felt left behind. And if we are all about increasing GDP for everyone to benefit, then it makes sense that we ought to try to understand not just the first mile of starting an innovation economy, but the next mile that unlocks and really creates capacity for all entrepreneurs to rise. So 5 years ago, we actually started on a learning journey as we heard from our entrepreneurs deeply the challenge of how not everyone had fair access to resources or support systems. Where were support occurring and what was driving that to occur? We started at a very macro level, right? If you think of place and space in entrepreneurship, still to this day, I say we all fall guilty of thinking through, Silicon Valley or New York, maybe London, maybe some of the other international places and spaces, but we have a place in mind and it's always equally distributed. So we wanted to look at international and domestic insights to understand, was it equally occurring or where was it maybe going faster outside of those coastal environments that we often spend a lot of time looking at? And in that process, we discovered some fascinating findings. We discovered that not everybody was moving forward faster, not surprisingly, but those places that were actually having shifts occur much faster than one would expect. So a lot of the time, if you're thinking high growth enterprise, you usually think, we have to wait a decade or more to see signals of opportunity that are actually unfolding. Increases in valuation, X number of financings and fundings that are occurring in those markets. And in some places, they were performing at very different rates than others. And so we started to go a little bit deeper in the following year to say, what can we learn in the United States? Because that macro view, it was almost too big. And the United States, not surprisingly, was a dominant market in and of itself. So we said, we need to look at the US alone. And again, let's strip out our coastal environment and look at where is entrepreneurship advancing for all. And we did this with the hardest of missions in front of us, no pun intended. But data in this space is not the.
No.
Let's be honest, we both know this. It's very difficult. You spend a lot of time realizing we don't look at identity in the ways that other places necessarily do. It's very hard looking at when are you talking about like returns occurring? How are we even going to measure apples to apples in this field? And fortunately, we worked beside a couple of incredible think tanks. We worked with Heartland Ford and Penn State University, who were able to normalize things relative to policy indicators. So Penn State University looked at 7 million policy briefings, bless them for doing that work. It's something very much that I'm glad that I didn't have to.
7 million. Oh my goodness.
Over the course of a decade. And in that environment, they actually surfaced, it's the most bipartisan issue of all. And I think we take away anything from this. There is that silver lining, like no matter the world, no matter the moment, everybody is committed, passionately believes in the power of opportunity that is uniquely unfolded through entrepreneurship and believes in the importance that everyone has access to that. It's not something that only one side feels or something that another side feels. It really is a unifier, which perhaps more than ever we can appreciate in these moments. The other side of the house was to say, okay, if capital is not equally distributed, which I know you and I could talk about for days or weeks at length on that, then how do we start to think about what other signals indicate high growth founders? And sadly, the only unifier that we could actually all collectively agree on as a starting line was income. Because if you say, what is the point of entrepreneurship, opportunity or necessity entrepreneur? At the end of the day, it's to be able to create some level of wealth, generational wealth, that is allowing them to pursue that and not to have to pursue some other option out there. And so that income metric became a level set to say, okay, if we can't just look at like how much money is flowing into companies because some founders have been left out of that opportunity set, then we're going to have to start to look at, are these founders producing high growth companies by the rate of which they're performing above national salary average? And that is available inside of census. And that was available to then look at an identity layer. Because again, remember, we're not just looking at a certain type of founder. We're saying for everyone, for all identities, for all socioeconomic levels. So we had to normalize in that environment. And again, data in this space, super gnarly, very difficult to do. But that was our baseline. And in that body of work, 7 states emerged as what we called our equity innovation leaders. These are the states that are performing above and beyond what other states were able to do when it came to this field. And of course, data alone is not going to tell you the narrative of then doing the what. And all of this was with a goal to say, okay, 7 states doing it well. What can all of the rest of us start to apply to inspire and continue to involve an innovation economy where all can participate? And so in that process, we started to do deep qualitative layers of research with, at the time, about 22 different stakeholders. Those range from policy leaders, as you would expect, a lot of entrepreneurial support organizations, the heart of the community in many ways. We looked at capital allocators, angel investors, VCs, the traditional banks. We understood the role of service providers, right? It takes a village always in entrepreneurship. And many of the early villages of support are the law firms, the banks, the accounting firms that are leaning in almost a little pro bono to ensure the enrichment of that high growth base of support. And there was some amazing findings that came through that allowed us to have a first level of this blueprint of the innovation economy. But even in that moment, we were like, it's still so highly nuanced. We wanted to go a level deeper. And as part of their commitment to supporting the work, NASDAQ Foundation and also JP Morgan Chase Foundation had said, we want to get down to an MFA level, 3 letters that really stand for a metropolitan regional level of insight. We didn't know at the time, nobody could have read the tea leaves, obviously, the importance of being able to go down to that level of granularity, because as we've all witnessed in the last couple of years, there's really been a very big decentralization of like federal choices and powers of the innovation economy and who's getting resource allocations as a result, being driven a lot more from the groundswell, the locations of choices, very hard budget times, very difficult moments in general to navigate through. And so as we started this year's journey, this 5th year's journey into saying, what is going on at the metropolitan statistical area region? Who are those performers? What was really great to see is that some of the states that we expected were absolutely covered on this list. But some of the places that were not in the state level were still rising at the regional level. And the importance of that, again, comes down to the fact that despite all the challenges of not having an affluent budget, of not being recognized at a national level, there were towns, there were regions that were performing faster than others that were doing innovative piloting of ideas, new capital formation structures, a real collective, invigorated stance, believing in the power of entrepreneurship and what it meant for them and what it meant for their key stakeholders in that grouping. So that's where we are. That's what this research is all about, was now looking at these 20 MSAs who are shaping a different stratosphere, honestly, of like fast forwarding progress and innovation, really moving to that next mile of the innovation economy, seeing and keeping being the operative word, great talent within those places. Entrepreneurs can rise and thrive, and that it's inspiring other generations to go seek that same opportunity for themselves.
Wow. Okay, so let me see that I got all of this. That was a lot. So you first started out by looking for the entrepreneurs that were producing the levels of income that would warrant saying, hey, this is really a thriving or successful endeavor. And then from there started to wheedle it down to, okay, where is it? What are the areas, the metropolitan areas, or in this case, maybe they're not so metropolitan, maybe they're in a rural area, or maybe they're in a region that you wouldn't necessarily think of. I know I first started angel investing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I certainly didn't think that Pittsburgh was a big hub for entrepreneurship, but it turned out it was very up and coming and nowadays is like really thriving. So interesting dynamics. But so that's how you got to where you got to these 20 places that you think are like hotbeds?
Yeah, exactly. So we looked at 250. So the teams of Heartland Forward and Penn State University looked at 250, and they dispersed it down to these 20 that are forming MSA regions, looking at that normalized layer. And then again, we came in and said, okay, great. We've got a good line of sight into 20. What's going on there? And then we did 41 qualitative interviews that really informed in 8 unique regions this blueprint for advancing innovation economy and understanding what was happening there. What were the effects, the push-pull tensions, if you will, that were really moving that needle. So we wanted to understand education. We wanted to understand quality of life effects. We wanted to understand migration, mobility movements. Certainly over the US post-COVID, that's been a very dominant theme of, is this a situation where people are moving into an area and that's having this beautiful virality of encouraging, endorsing more innovation within that region or not? We wanted to look at capital, the flows of capital. Obviously, this is all about capital in many ways and understanding what is the sources of unlocking faster innovation in regions. Who is doing that? There was a lot of stakeholder analysis, and some of the findings that I'm sure we're going to get into next were radically surprising. And many of them are wonderfully nurturing because, again, if I think back to like, how accessible is this for any region in America to put into action tomorrow? The good news is pretty darn encouraging. These are not things that you have to wait for magic skies opening, unicorns and ponies emerging, and suddenly one day it all comes together. Like, we can take these steps, we can take these actions, we can lock the innovation advancement almost immediately with just a few couple of clear changes. So I hope it's inspiring. I think all of us that were involved in the study walked away with a more compelling sense of appreciation for the influencers of the innovation economy, the many moving parts of who's involved in it, and also really what it's taking to drive that forward for so many populations who have historically not been included in that advancement. And I think now we're driving a much brighter future where we're deeply appreciative of all that they're doing to build better for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. Radically surprising and wonderfully nurturing.
Yeah.
You can't get much better than that, right? So, all right. So tell us and basically what you're trying to do now is make a blueprint for the future. So pretty much any city, any town, anywhere really could take this and say, hey, these are the things that you really need. You want to have a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. You can't just maybe say, we'll take a couple. No, you have to have the blueprint.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I want to say that every single region that we looked at has areas of strength. And I think all of us, again, and I'll call myself into this, like when I first started and I'd seen the propagation in a really positive way of the number of YCs, Y Combinator accelerators, or the number of entrepreneurial startup organizations focused on specific nuances, be they industry, be they identity, be they stage. And I was like, oh, it's just going to end up being like, you need to step and repeat and do that and attract those types of people here. And then that's what's really going to build better. And it certainly helps, but it's not like that's the only way to get there. And I think what we do in this field, and I think we both agree on this and the challenge of this for the last couple of decades, even though the field itself is only 50-ish, 60 years old, modern day entrepreneurship, and certainly the capital markets in America, we haven't been able to pattern match ideally to understanding where history has actually created an unlocked opportunity versus where it's like doing it again. And we haven't really changed the ingredients in the cupboard, but we're hoping for a different output. We really want to hope for a different output. We need to better analyze and understand what are the ingredients in the cupboard that we actually have to make a delicious meal. And that's going to inform and guide us on like then going, oh, I'm out of salt. I can't make that right now. I need to go get salt, right? And it's not saying you don't have great ingredients in your cabinet. You do. But you need to know what's really going to change that marker based on the depth of learning and historical context, which again, if we go back to the problem of data in this field and the fact that none of us have had a real good inventorying system of what's working and what's not working, it's been limited with that perspective. I think everyone's heart's in the right places, but we tend to step and repeat the same experiments over and over again without really yielding or seeing a different change. So that's our goal. Everyone's dollars and time is so precious. We just want to get them to go as far as they possibly can without feeling like they're consistently reinventing the wheel over and over again.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, get as far and as fast as they can,
Exactly.
right? So it's not taking forever for them to build these companies, right?
So let's talk about what emerged, hit on maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 main points, and then we can dig into any of those areas because they all work together. It's like a cog and a flywheel effect, surprisingly. So these are clear within all of these 20 MSAs. And so again, if we get back to the MSAs, they're not all concentrated in the Midwest. They're not all concentrated in any one location. This was like surprising to us what emerged as sources of truth across such wide and diverse and beautiful pieces of America that's driving the innovation economy forward. First and foremost, the barbell effect of capital. In fact, we're going to talk about the barbell effect in many ways as we go through today. The barbell effect of capital showcased 3 fascinating pieces. All 20 of these MSAs had access to early stage high growth capital in the formation of angel groups. And when I say angel group, I don't just mean a loosely affiliated environment of people coming together and investing. These are investors that have made an intentional decision to collectively come together to learn how to be great angel investors, to contribute to the field, if you will, and to be part of an accredited system. So in the 20 MSAs, which again, 250 MSAs in America, 20 of these MSAs that rose to the top held 60% of the total accredited angel groups in America.
Wow. Wow.
On the other flip of the barbell, all of these 20 MSAs had exceptionally strong 504 loan support systems. Now, 504, it's important. Like, where does that fit in the capital stack? I myself have never gotten a 504 loan. What's really fascinating, and this is going to get to the industry barbell effect that's coming next, 504 loans are really good for those companies that are looking to scale infrastructure and scale facilities and scale investment in almost place and space coming together. So typically you would get a 504 loan if you were in manufacturing. You might get a 504 loan for clean tech types of experience and enhancements in your company. But you're really doing it with a lens of either a different sector that's covered around the high growth environment, or you're doing it to improve and grow and scale up your business through headquarters, through locations, and through place and space. When you look at the composite of these 2 things together, that means that 70% of all high growth industries are covered with this barbell effect of 504 and angel capital. So it negates this idea, which again, we've heard folklore for periods of time of, well, should I just go deep in one industry? Should my region just be all in on AI? Sorry, how do you use the bladder again? Should we just go all in on that? And what is true when we look back, and again, this data looked back over a 10-year period, so we weren't just looking for blips in a market in a moment. We were trying to take a little bit more of a judicious approach, longitudinal effect, 10 years of data. It became clear that indexing to a singular industry was not catalytic to an innovation economy. The success was diversification of both that talent spectrum, meaning 70% industry coverage, which was afforded uniquely through a greatest support system of early stage capital coming through angel groups, not venture firms. Yay, good news, everybody needs a Sand Hill Road in their backyard.
Right.
Angel groups and these 504 loans. So the traditional banking partners coupled with a collective support system of angels.
So let me just go back, make sure I understand. So of all of the angel groups that are in the US that are full of angel groups, usually, of course, all accredited investors, you're saying that 60% of all the angels were actually collectively in these 20 MSAs.
Correct.
Wow. So all 20 had a significant presence of angels, accredited angel groups. And if you added up just from the 20 out of the 250, you actually got 60% of the angel groups in the US.
In the US.
Wow. That's powerful.
I think what's lovely then, so if you'll indulge, I'm going to pop over to education, because I think what we're doing is we're unraveling this powerful influence of support system that has sadly gone under the radar screen. And yet, again, you and I both know that because we're on the angel spectrum a little bit. But the power of support and the power of capital and the power to change community and place through that landscape of who are those individuals that are investing early and honestly investing out of their own pocket, right? They're not beholden to others. So it's just an interesting field. So on education, what emerged very strongly is that in all of these 20 MSAs, they had both access to an R1 institution, which is a research one level institute, and they had extremely strong community college and or technical college fields where entrepreneurship was taught by professors of practice. And while I can't yet say with a shadow of doubt, the expectation, and where we're just going to our last line of learning, is to expect that many of those angel investors who are in those communities are both mentoring, showing up at those pitch competitions, supporting those practices that is occurring within those college campuses, both at the research levels, but also bringing them forward into pathways of future of work opportunities for community college level students and technical college professionals too.
Amazing. Yeah, and that makes so much sense. I watched it when I lived in Pittsburgh. I didn't really know anything about entrepreneurship, angels, anything when I was introduced to this whole world. And we had Carnegie Mellon and the University of Pittsburgh, big research areas or universities, and they were just doing so much to help get the ball rolling for a lot of these entrepreneurs.
And then I'm gonna round this out by saying that the other fascinating piece to me, not to stop politics, but one has to. Speaking of AI, because AI is going to be politics. But on the very positive level, there's this read that I've gotten to appreciate where it's almost like a sentiment index, if you will. So people try to understand how frequently are local politicians or state level politicians talking about an issue on the state legislative floor. And they have an index for measuring that. And in our case, when we looked at the level of analysis relative to entrepreneurship, by the number of bills that were being introduced, and not just bills that were being introduced, but the influence and the effect of a bill on the field of entrepreneurship, the top 20 MSAs were scoring a 3 out of 5. So this is a baseline of 5 being highest that you could get, 3 out of 5. By comparison, all the other regions were usually scoring a 1 or a 2. What told us when we dug into it meant that those legislative officials in those places were consistently going to entrepreneurs and deeply understanding and being curious to ask and know what was the effect on anything that they were putting forward in the lives and the value systems of entrepreneurs. So there wasn't anything that was going on there where they didn't slow, well, I shouldn't say anything, but the majority of time they were slowing down to ask themselves, if we pass this, if we change something on the budget, if we do these things, how will it affect entrepreneurship within our region? And that's pretty powerful to know, again, individuals learning from. Well, chances are the influencers to the community, which means, again, the power not just of our angels, but the entrepreneurs themselves, those that have the lived experience, and the appreciation, the respect, and the understanding, and the direct connectivity between those stakeholder groups. It wasn't an M&S moment, right? There was this joint line of support that was going forward from entrepreneurial support organizations all the way out. So those level of insights, again, I'm going to come back to saying, like, I think gives us all hope that it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all or this affluent basis of if we don't have X VC firms that come to our region, or we don't have Y research institutions that we get to call home, or we don't have this effect of the best and the brightest policymakers. These are all within our reach to be able to understand where we sit within that framework, and to also know that the individuals who can shape the communities can actually do that all the way up this ladder of support system, building these angel groups with intentionality, making sure that they are open and a part of the community, and seeing this support system that exists across all of those service provider stakeholders too.
Amazing. So you mentioned like the 4 things. So that would be the 504 and the angel groups, and then also the diversification, making sure that you're not just all basically concentrated in one industry. The education piece, having a research university in the area. And now
the technical college and the community college.
Okay. All right.
If you think of the talent pipeline, so the reason I should slow down a little bit there, but one of the challenges has often been, and again, maybe more mythology than reality as we're digging into this, that companies can only go to a certain size and then they have to leave to attract talent, where there's this groundswell effect where honestly entry-level talent, if you think of all of us that go back to startups and you think of those first key hires and those first 20 people, the exposure to entrepreneurship, the exposure to the innovation economy is critical in your early hires. You can't necessarily take someone from industry and expect them to perform well in the startup mentality. That isn't fair to them. It's fair to the founder. So you need to have this baseline awareness and understanding of the risk, the vulnerabilities, the opportunities that come with that, and make sure people have a fertile learning ground from which to apply those insights and perspectives. And that's where the community colleges and the technical colleges really come into bear, because you can't just hire everyone at a research institute. And you may not have enough exit companies, if you will, that are allowing enough talent to be on the marketplace when you're looking to hire a few early employees. So the diversification of the talent pipeline through the educational system that equally is inspired by the research institutions, but supportive at the early entry-level systems is very important too, or at least it showed up very dominantly in the top 20 MSAs.
Wow. That's so interesting. So, okay, give us the big reveal. Where are the places?
Well, there are a lot of wonderful places. I'm going to go through, it is a big list to say the least, but I think it's also an incredibly inspiring one. So let's start with, this is alphabetical order, so it's certainly hard to pick favorites in these. So we have Albany to Troy out of New York. We have Austin to Round Rock out of Texas. We have San Diego to Carlsbad out of California. Oakland to Hayward out of California. Of course, maybe one of your favorites, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Of course, yes.
Atlanta and Sandy Springs and Roswell out of Georgia. Charlotte to Concord to Gastonia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. But one of those ones that crosses the lines, we got a lot of deep levels of learning when that happened. Columbus, Ohio. Seattle, Tacoma, and Bellevue, Washington. Baltimore, Columbia, and Towson, Maryland. Virginia Beach to Norfolk to Newport News out of Virginia and North Carolina. SUNY Albany. We have UT Texas and Tesla. Oh, the anchors, sorry. I'm doing the anchors out of those. We have Riverside to San Bernardino in Ontario. Los Angeles to Long Beach and Anaheim. New Orleans, which is where we released our report, which is very exciting. So we got to focus on NOLA. So New Orleans, Richmond, Virginia, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Minnesota to Wisconsin, Washington, Arlington, Alexandria out of DC areas, Orlando to Kissimmee in Florida. Florida was one of our top 7 states, and it was interesting to see where within inside of Florida, would not have been my guess, that really emerged as a dominant MS. Portland, Vancouver, and Hillsborough, Oregon, and Washington. And last, but definitely not least, our incredible Kansas City.
Yes. Love that. And that's where the Angel Capital Association is originally based.
To the home base.
Yeah, back to the home base. Back to where the Kauffman Foundation started everything.
Exactly.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, so many great areas. And I know so many of the angels that are in those areas too, which is so fun.
And that's really where we want to go a little bit deeper now, is learning from them and taking these stories of narrative and understanding the considerations of what they're most excited about and how they put into practice this incredible system of support that's allowing entrepreneurship to truly rise and thrive in these areas. And again, hopefully inspire another 20 MSA. Nothing will make me happier than next year, if you'll have me back again, for me to go,
yes,
we can get 20 to 10. Now we've got 40 MSAs that are all performing in that same level, right?
Oh my gosh, so good. Just from my own personal experience watching Pittsburgh become what it is today, it was really, Catherine Mott was one of the pioneers putting together the very first angel group in Pittsburgh, and how just all the entrepreneurs were rallying around Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh. And now, like, all the big tech companies have offices there. They all want to hire out of that area. There's like tons of innovation going on. I remember areas in the surrounding Pittsburgh area that were maybe not the greatest, and they're all thriving now. Been totally, it's just really amazing to see. A lot of people still have a perception of Pittsburgh being a steel town. It's dirty, it's beautiful, and it is really thriving.
And I think, again, maybe angels also uniquely understand this, right? Unlike a lot of jobs, entrepreneurs often don't leave that job. They're thinking through it 24/7, 365. And so the ability to breathe and on the hardest of days still keep going often comes down to looking up and looking out. And looking up and looking out is totally tied to place and the loved ones that they have around there and the connectivity they see for building there and the reasons to keep going even on those hardest of days. And that seeds so much into the heart and the soul and the opportunity that is unveiling within these places. And to your point, not being just a singular expectation of, oh, well, this was once a place that could help, or this was once this type of a town, but really this dynamic environment where entrepreneurs see themselves so uniquely being supported that they're willing to take that bet and stay there. And they don't follow mythology, but they see themselves as uniquely being able to build what they dream, their biggest of aspirations in that place, in that zip code, in that state. And that is America's national treasure right there.
100%.
On a soapbox, but that is America's national treasure right there.
That is amazing. All right. So where can people find a copy of this research? How can they learn more about the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center?
Please come see us at NASDAQcenter.org. You can download this report. You can share it on. We hope you'll join us for a lot of the unveilings and these learning tours that we're doing via webinars to inspire and go deeper with angels in these communities, with leaders within these communities to go even further than what we can do ever justice in a report. No matter how good a report it is, you got to hear from people and you got to start to think about the ingredients that you have in your own blueprint. So we want to hear from you. We want to learn from you. If you're inspired by this, please share it on, please pass it on. And we're looking forward to continuing to track and create more velocity around accessible data that can actually inform and guide us all on really advancing this innovation economy that we're all committed to.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this amazing data, and we will be sure to keep following.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're leading, Marcia. It's so incredibly inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to the angelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. And classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us.
All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. While Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee, my views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.